don't know why I was so obsessed with like getting your knee hole.
Totally.
I was like, I like that.
I can do this. If you like that.
Sit however, whatever.
Yeah,
like, that's
totally.
so funny. Oh my god.
Yeah.
You ready?
Ready.
Okay. Okay. What's your name?
My name's Rose.
And how old are you?
I just turned 28.
Okay.
Yeah.
And who are you on a soul level?
Oof. I think that's I'm in like a big phase of uncovering that. I think like fundamentally I'm curious and yeah, curious both about like the like mundane three-dimensional world, and then like also very curious like spiritually. So I know for me, like I am the happiest when I'm learning stuff. And if like I think if that's what I get to do for the rest of my life, that that'll be really satisfying.
Okay. So, how do you identify?
I identify as a non-binary transmasculine person. I'm also white Ashkenazi Jew. I'm a recovered alcoholic. I'm a Virgo. And I'm also a scientist.
I just love the fact you're a scientist.
Me too. Yeah.
Is there anything that has happened in the past or anything that is going on right now that has had a really big impact on who you are today?
Yeah.
And how you like carry yourself and show yourself to the world?
Yeah. Oh, geez.
Big question.
Yeah. And like so many things, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think like definitely growing up in like a queer, like growing up as like a queer Jewish person in Texas was was an experience. I also grew up with people who have mental illness, which was really formative. I think getting sober was that was huge, obviously. And then getting sober, and I think like like those are the like probably like the three like biggest ones.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Life's just so big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to give you 3 categories,
Yeah.
and I want you to tell me what means the most to you and what means the least to you.
Mm-hmm.
And you can mix and match them how you want to, but I really do want you to kind of give your thoughts on each of the things in the categories.
Yeah.
So the first category is love, sex, relationships.
Mm-hmm.
The next category is society, culture, politics.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next category is spirituality and or religion, because that doesn't go hand in hand for everyone.
Sure.
So for you, what takes the front seat?
Spirituality and religion.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
hands down.
talk a little bit about what your spirituality looks like.
Sure. So growing up, like my mom is Jewish, and then also at least like ever since I can remember, also engages in like more like occult, like witchy shit, for lack of a better term.
Mm-hmm.
And then my dad was raised Catholic, and then found Buddhism.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I do support that.
Totally.
Like.
Yeah. I have this whole sidebar about like white people in Buddhism, but that's for like a different time. Yeah. So I remember just like being really interested in the idea of God from like a young age, and you know, my mom would bring in like aspects of like Jewish practice, and then like also taught me, you know, how to make people be nice to me by tying like a bunch of knots in thread. Yeah.
I had no clue your mom like introduced you
totally
to all of
yeah,
That's
yeah.
so crazy.
Yeah. And then like when I was 8 years old, like my dad taught me how to meditate and stuff like that. So I was like seeking from a very young age. But I think I don't know, like, you know, as life was unfolding, probably in like high school, I started reading a bunch of like really intense philosophy. And you know, I was really identified with like I just like above all else in high school, I just wanted to be like right and logical. So I got, yeah, totally. So I just got to this point where I remember thinking very clearly that you couldn't prove like God or other spiritual concepts one way or the other. So I was just done with the whole thing. And then, you know, kind of proceeded to run my life into the ground in a lot of ways. And so I had to, I don't know, when I was getting sober, I think I had to like squarely look at the concept of spirituality again. And kind of had this like big breaking open moment where I couldn't deny that that was an aspect of my life. And that if, you know, if I was accepting that like spirituality and spiritual principles were going to be an aspect of my life, that I, you know, just had to start like digging around in that field. So I've been sober for, it'll be close to 6 years. And like as a process of just like trying to like live in the world without a chemical filter, I've just had to seek a lot. And so, you know, I started, I guess, after moving to Baltimore, which is the first place I've lived with like an actual like active, vibrant Jewish community, or a large one at least. I've gotten really involved with like very social justice oriented progressive synagogue.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and that's added a lot to my life. And then I also have been looking at ways to like weave in, you know, more of the like occult stuff that I grew up with in a way that like makes sense and feels good. And so in a lot of ways, like very recently, it feels like I'm like actively practicing all those spiritual elements that were present when I was like a little kid, but in like a like adult version of that that's been just really sustaining to me in some crazy life stuff. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So spirituality comes 1st, then after that, what's next? So there was love, sex, relationship, and society, culture, politics.
I would probably say society, culture, and politics.
Okay.
Second,
So, like, I mean, I know that's a lot.
Yeah.
But, like, what can you say about where you're at right now with society, where your thoughts, and politics, where you stand, elections are coming, like...
Yeah. So I think, there's, I only found this quote recently, but it, sums up how I feel about, like, my personal responsibility when it comes to being a person in society. It's from a Jewish text called Pirkei Avot, which means wisdom of our fathers. Yeah. I'm like, what about our moms? But there's a teaching from that which roughly translates to, like, it is not our job to finish the work, but that doesn't mean we're not responsible for doing the work. So it's like, we're not gonna ever, hopefully this isn't the case, but it's not reasonable to expect that we're gonna finish the work of building, like, a just society in our lifetimes, but that doesn't mean that we're not responsible for trying. And I feel like that's the middle path that I've needed to find when it comes to living in a society that's based off of, like, white supremacy and settler capitalism and patriarchy, which I really believe is bad for everyone,
Right.
And obviously a lot worse for some people. But yeah, I think for me, being, like, politically aware is kind of just like an offshoot from my spiritual practices. Like, I don't think I can be, for me personally, like, I don't think I can be, like, spiritually alive and just ignoring what's going on in the outside world. Like, I need spirituality and, like, a relationship with God that makes me feel like, the most alive and present and embodied, and that for me has involved having to look at some really unsavory shit, both in myself and then in the world around me.
Right.
And so I think for me, what is most important when I'm looking at, like, society, culture, and politics is just, like, remembering that I'm, like, on a fact-finding mission.
Right.
And that, that, like, I need to look at the, like, words and experiences of people who have different life experiences than me, and, like, take them at their word for, like, that, and, like, recognize that everybody's, like, the foremost expert on their own experience, right? And so that can get really overwhelming, just because there's a lot of injustice in the world, and so I think, like, the most productive channel that I've found for that is through activism, and I'm not as engaged with like, activism as I wish I was a lot of the times, and I'm still learning a lot in that arena when it comes to like, what specific issues I want to, like, put my time and my body into, and how to do that in a way that is like respectful and produces results. But yeah, I feel like I'm starting to.
No.
Yeah.
No, you're doing great.
Yeah. Yeah. So, there's still a lot that I need to learn about, like doing that effectively. But it, I think from a very young age, I can remember just feeling like all the problems of the world were just like too heavy and insurmountable. And I think, and I've definitely been through periods in my life where I was like, you know what, fuck this, the world's gonna dissolve in a climate disaster in the near future anyways, so I'm just gonna
which is terrifying to even
Jesus, yeah.
Think about.
Yeah. So since the world's ending imminently, I'm just gonna live deliciously.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yes, live deliciously. Yeah. I love that.
And there's part of it, that idea that's really helpful still, you know, when it comes to like evaluating what's important. But I also sleep a lot better at night knowing that I've done what I can to make someone's life easier somewhere.
Right.
So it's there's a constant tension between that.
Okay.
Yeah. I think
that was a good answer.
Thanks.
So, I always love talking to people that have love sex relationships last because everyone puts that first.
Really?
It seems like a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And obviously I haven't done this yet, so I don't know where I'll be when I go, but
Sure.
I just love it because I'm just like, okay, now like the real shit about like the love, the sex, and the relationships.
Yeah.
Like, so tell me everything.
Okay. Jeez. Fuck. So I do think that part of why I so I guess first of all, I don't identify as a woman, but I do feel like I still have to sort through like a lot of internalized misogyny since my whole life I've been raised as
right.
A girl or a woman. And I think part of why I put love, sex, and relationships on the bottom is like some like internalized misogyny, weird second wave feminism bullshit where you know, there's this there's just like this like old butch lesbian in my head. No disrespect to like all of the beautiful old butches in my life, but there's like this certain voice in my head that's you know, like,
I'm gonna show the cat so people know that there's literally
there's a magpie.
Hi. I show all the friends.
Yay.
I show all the kitties.
I
love kitties.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. So when people hear her meow, they're
totally.
not like, what's happening?
This is haunted.
Right.
Yeah, so there's this, like, you know, there's this, like, really unhelpful voice in my head that's like, you need to be a strong, independent person. You need to, you know, like, be whole and complete within yourself and not, like, be looking for that with other people. And there are aspects of that, view that have been helpful for me in the past, but I think also what I'm learning very recently is that I don't think people are meant to live in a vacuum, and that my like there's a good part of my healing that I can't do by myself. It has to happen it has to happen in community and in intimate relationships of all sorts. So, you know, for most of my 20s, you know, I've said, like, you know, I'm militantly single. You know, I have a expensive vibrator and a lot of very emotionally intimate friendship.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was like, I have really beautiful, emotionally intimate, platonic friendships, and I know what I like. So like, why would I need a partner in this equation? And I guess kind of like in the last 6 months, I've realized that that's keeps myself really, like, that just keeps my life smaller than it needs to be. But it's I think also to when I have been getting like in like the couple of times in my 20s that I've like begun to get romantically involved with someone, romantically or sexually involved with someone, that the amount of self-worth stuff that comes up has just made the process like really difficult and painful for me, and so 10 times out of 10 I've just like fucking dipped. I'm like, this is not worth
right out of there.
Yeah, totally. I'm like, this is not worth how crazy I feel.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, but since I can remember, I've hated having crushes on people. It's like
same.
It's like the most painful thing.
Yeah.
I can, like acutely painful thing for me. Yeah, so it's just I'm like trying to grow in that area a lot right now, but it's way down on the list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're currently in a relationship, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Like you feel fine, or you feel like you're.
No, I'm crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, like I've had to do and like we've only been like dating for a couple of months.
Yeah.
But I've had to do like a lot of internal work to fucking just like stay still.
Yeah.
But I think it's worth it.
Good.
So far. Yeah. Totally.
Okay. Great answer.
Yeah.
Oh God, I love you so much. Okay, so I'm gonna get you to draw.
Okay.
So I want you to pick colors that represent you as a person, the things that make you happy, any memories, just any colors that really stand out to you and that you can kind of land why you would pick the colors. So you can tell everyone like why you picked the specific. Yeah. And then I'm gonna get you to draw for the rest of the interview.
Cool.
I also like the fact that these markers are kind of like ASMR.
Totally.
So, and I'm like a weirdo. Like I love it. Like,
oh my God! Don't get me started.
I love it. So I'm like, this will be a treat for anyone who's interested in that. Like some people probably don't even care, but the other people are probably like, oh, what was that? Like,
Yeah. Oh fuck. Cool.
Totally fine.
Sweet.
Okay, so what colors did you pick?
A lot. No. Sorry.
You're like, that's not with the palette.
No. Cool. So, I guess we're doing. I don't even know what you would call this color palette. But
are there any colors you picked for specific reasons?
So, I think when I was in basically before I think I accidentally just picked colors that match this blanket.
That happens too. That happens.
Yeah. So basically, in a lot of ways, 6th grade was trash.
Okay. Middle school was trash for most of us.
Yeah,
so.
for sure. 6th grade was like acutely the worst for me. I was going basically like I started 6th grade. I went to just like this very suburban middle school, and like I exclusively hung out with dudes in like elementary school, and so like my dude friends and I were still hanging out in 6th grade, but like everybody was going through puberty, and so it just like started changing and getting really fucking awkward.
Yeah.
And then like I was in a basically like when I was a little kid, I was like always the teacher's pet, and like my teachers kind of like stopped responding like they did in elementary school. So if I would write like 2 extra pages for my report, they
They'd
would
be like, that wasn't the assignment.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and
I tried
was
that.
just
Multiple
yeah, exactly.
Maybe if I just write more, you'll pass me.
Yeah. And so basically, like at the end of 6th grade, my like all of my self-confidence was just like shattered. And I spent the summer between 6th and 7th grade like actively trying to change that because I was switching schools. And so I was like doing a lot of like trying to like I like made like figuring out who I was a project, which was like very like small rose way to do it. And yeah, so like I remember like trying to like figure out what I liked, what made me feel good, what was important to me. And like at that time, I just remember feeling like a lot of like the color red felt like safe and protective, which like I think on a like in like a color magic vein makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So I like in that time would just like I like wore a lot of red, sought out a lot of red, and it worked for me.
Yeah.
Yesterday someone asked me they surprised me with a cake at work because my birthday was on Tuesday, and the icing was orange. Someone asked me if that was my favorite color, and I was like, I don't think so, but it is really good.
It works.
Yeah, this color reminded me of the like weird brown that my grandparents' lake house was painted.
On the inside?
Outside.
Oh, okay.
Crucially. Yeah.
I was like, that is
a choice.
Yeah.
That would have been a choice. Yeah, so they had like this like very 70s house that they built in Gun Barrel City, Texas. And spent a lot of summertime there. There's only one natural lake in the state of Texas, and the rest of them are just like mud pits dug into the ground. Yeah. Ugh. But if that's all you got, it's all you know, you know.
So did they live at the lake? Like the one real one?
No. This Cedar Creek Lake was, I think, just put there by developers.
Oh, okay.
Like, you know, it would be good for this region, a lake. So yeah, it was really big though. And they lived in like Fort Worth, Arlington area, and then would just like, you know, this was like just this extra property that they had for big drunk parties.
Okay.
Yeah.
Works.
Yeah. And then I guess on these are just pretty. The purple and the periwinkle. That's all I got for those. This one, we had one of my mom's friends growing up was a painter, who's just like really, really talented. Mickey, can't remember his last name.
Hmm.
But he he died from AIDS when I was probably like 10 or 11. We had like a couple of his paintings in the house. And most of what he did were these like giant, probably like, I don't know, 6 or 7 foot tall paintings of palm trees. And which I think has, I think that's like a like Christian symbol.
I don't know.
Yeah, like there's palms.
Yeah.
I wish I knew more about it.
Yeah.
But he always used the skies were like frequently like this like really like rich like jewel tone cobalt cerulean.
Wow.
And yeah, he lived in this like basement apartment in a really old part of Austin with his friend Robert, who was around a lot when I was little, and he had painted he had just painted the whole apartment in palm trees, and a lot of this blue. Yeah, and then this is so crunchy, but I have a piece of peach moonstone that I've been carrying around a lot. So I'm way more into this color than I normally am.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Sweet.
Yeah. Anyways.
No, that was awesome. And you're really good at describing art.
Thanks.
Because I could see it.
Yeah.
As you described it, and it was comforting.
Cool.
So that's awesome. All right, so I'm gonna ask you questions.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you draw, and if you finish,
okay.
Because obviously you're just doing it as like a
distressing.
Yeah. First question: what makes you the most upset?
Bigotry. Yeah. And I don't know if this is gonna sound cheesy or not, but contempt prior to investigation.
Explain.
So I think like one of the thing that shortcuts, like it has like a like shortcut to like my anger wiring in my head is people who have like intense judgments about something that they don't know about.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And and like just I think the idea that you can either like on a political level or just like an interpersonal level, like legislate someone's experience. So I think like ignorance and intolerance are like the things where like I start burning inside a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What makes you the happiest?
Right now, studying Hebrew, my houseplants.
How many houseplants do you have for people who aren't in the space with them?
They're all in my room.
Okay.
But I have 8 right now.
Okay. Do you name them?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some people are just like, this is George.
That's really
this
cute.
Is Cindy. And
yeah.
Okay.
I guess like for the ones where it's like I know what the plant's called, it's like this is pothos. This is pencil cactus.
Yeah. Which most people don't. So they're like, this is Susan.
Yeah.
They're like, whatever.
Yeah.
Let's see. What is your favorite song right now?
Daniel Johnston just died. He's like he's a big. I grew up in Austin, Texas. He's a big Austin.
Is he country?
No, he's a singer songwriter.
Okay.
And it's like really lo-fi, and very like bare emotional songwriting. So I've the song that he played at the end of most of the shows that I went to, at least, is called "True Love Will Find You in the End." And I guess like in light of his passing, it's just freaking. But that's what came to mind.
I have to go listen to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you most afraid of?
I think. Nobody asked you.
No.
I think I've always said this as like never amounting to anything, but I think what I really mean by that is wasting my time.
Yes.
On Earth. Yeah. That's stressed me out.
I feel that.
For as long as I can remember. Yeah.
As long as I've been alive.
I'm not doing it right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. Do you have social media?
I do not.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I have a LinkedIn page.
Okay. Okay. Because the next question is explain what social media is to you, but tell me why you don't have social media, and also, did you used to have social media? And then so tell me about that whole I'm deciding to leave now.
Yeah. So the last time I had a Facebook was in 2010. So yeah, I had one through high school. Tried to keep it up in like my freshman year of college. And just like quickly realized that I really wanted to like stay in touch with my friends from high school. But what I found was that I was just wasting a lot of time when I like should have been studying or doing homework, looking at like pictures of like friends of my friends in their bikinis, like on the beach in Mexico, and feeling like my life was horseshit. And it just like the feeling that I got when I was on Facebook was always like this like deep painful vacuum of just like I am not enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not skinny enough, I don't do enough with my life, my ideas aren't good. Like I just always, Facebook always made me feel less than. So my like packaged answer for why I'm not on social media is that I'm just like not spiritually qualified. Because I think I know there's probably a way to like engage with social media, which in a like way that like fills you up. But for me, it just like wasn't worth figuring out how to do that. And then I think probably in like 2016, 17, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna experiment with Instagram. And so for a good maybe like year, 18 months, Instagram was filling me up, and I was like learning about a bunch of artists that I never would have found otherwise, and like a lot of like social justice thinkers, and like creative folks, and like, you know, getting to like know a different side of my friends than I had before. And so there was like a short period of time where it was working for me, but it eventually like turned into this just like, I would just like lose hours scrolling through pictures, and I was like getting resentful at people I went to preschool with because it looked like their life was cooler than mine, and I was like, it was like the first time that I recognized that like I can be a really intensely jealous person actually.
Yeah.
So in that way, Instagram was a spiritual teacher for me. But yeah, it like after looking at how much emotional energy I was just like giving to Instagram, it it just made the most sense for me to delete my account. And like learning what to do with my hands in like down to like in like free moments was like very difficult for a while. I think as a surrogate, I like signed up for a bunch of email newsletters, which just makes me sound like 60 years old. But I'm very happy without social media. But it does. Sometimes I feel like I'm living in a slightly different reality than most of the people around me, just because like I don't know what fucked up thing someone said on Twitter or like any of that. So in a lot of ways, like I have to take people at face value. Like the people, like I only know the people in my life based on like what I see and know about them in person, essentially.
Which is kind of like a gift and a curse.
Yeah, I think a lot of times what's been coming up recently is that kind of feels unsafe in a way. Because like I don't know if that like some public figure said something really transphobic.
Yeah.
And like I don't know like what like shitty political things that like one dude that I see sometimes is just like spouting off into the internet, which I guess like what's interesting to me about that is that decades ago nobody knew that about people, and so like for the majority of human history we've been able to somewhat exist in society without knowing what everybody around us thinks at all times.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so I think the reason why that feels unsafe to me is like really interesting. In that it, in some ways it feels like we're living in some sort of like panopticon. And yeah. So I've kind of been chewing on that.
I feel like it's kind of, I don't know, beautiful though, because so many people put so many false realities on social media that if you are only meeting people face to face, you're seeing the real them.
Yeah.
All the time. So you don't even know, like, whether someone has 200 followers or 2 million. When you see them, you see them.
Yeah.
You don't see all of the fake and extra and filtered, which is kind of cool because, I mean, people do say crazy stuff on social media, but also a lot of people, you think you know somebody through social media and then you see them in person, you're like, oh, like you're a completely different person.
Totally.
So it's just weird. I mean, what do you think that we can do as a generation to reconnect? Like, this is something you do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And it's rare that I'm, with somebody that doesn't have social media. And I know that a lot of people take breaks. I've taken breaks, probably the longest I've done is like a month. Which was hard.
Yeah. I guess to respond to something that you said just then, I think like as trans person, I do, like, I also know the power of, you know, the, like, sense of empowerment that people get when they have the tools to create themselves. You know, so I think, like, for me personally, like, coming to a space where my insides and my outsides match has been really liberating, both when it comes to gender and then also just, like, trying to be a more honest and authentic person in the world.
Right.
And so, like, I wouldn't, like, in whatever ways people, like, need to do that, I think, you know, I would, you know, like, all the power to you. I just, like, know my experience of social media was not that. It was more me comparing my outsides to other people's outsides. Always in a negative way too.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I just wanted to add that piece. But I guess something that I find really important that I try and focus on is like, when I'm with people in person, just, like, keeping my phone in my pocket. And that's really important for me in relationships, because, like, I guess with, like, everybody having the internet accessible to them at all times, it's like you can be physically sharing the same space with someone, but they can just, like, kind of, like, dip out into this alternate reality.
Right.
And yeah, so on, like, my end of the relationship, I find it like, you know, like, we made time in our days to, like, you know, be in the same space with each other and, like, connect and interact. So, like, for me, like, my end of that bargain includes, like, making sure I'm not, like, constantly on my phone.
You're trying to be present.
Yeah.
With the person.
Yeah. And then I've also had to learn not to get mad at people when they're on their phone the whole time, because, like, that might not be their end of the bargain, you know?
Right.
It's, you know, we didn't sign a contract
exactly
for this hangout session.
Right.
So yeah. So for me, like, learning how to connect better with people has been, like, I think the biggest parts of it have been, like, presence and awareness, and also I've found that as I've been more, like, authentic and vulnerable with folks, that I get more of the same. I think it just builds, like, a degree of trust. And then I guess the third piece that's been helpful for me is trying to, like, drop the part of my mind that's, like, always weaving narratives. I used to love sitting in public and, like, watching strangers go by and, like, crafting their life story. And, like, you know, like, oh, he's wearing, like, a dirty pair of, like, white New Balance sneakers, and like, figuring out what that meant, which I think is, like, a fun creative exercise, but
sure.
Like, I just did that all the time.
Like,
And, like, with people, like, close to me, far from me, and you know, like, I've also spent plenty of time, like, pretending I'm folks' therapist, which I'm not qualified for and not good at. Those things are probably related. And trying to, like, set that down has made it a lot easier for me to be in relationship with people. So I'm just, like, so, like, trying to, like, see and accept the truth of people, who they are, the truth of who people are as I can see it in this moment, and, like, evaluating how much of that I want to be around.
What is the most challenging thing you've gone through?
For me, I think there, you know, there've been like a lot of like bumps in the road that I've experienced as challenging, but I think the one that took the longest for me to recover from, and like kind of like still hurts the most, was when I think I was like my junior and senior year of high school. My brother got really sick, and I attempted suicide, I think like 7 times in like 1 year. And just like, you know, my parents split when I was 5, and my brother and I would go back and forth through like to my mom's house to my dad's house. And so it was uh, in a lot of ways it was my my brother was my only constant. And you know, he was and then like he was also just like really really sick, so in like big sense it felt like he was just like slipping through my fingers. And you know, I was really like I was just hell bent on keeping him alive. And you know, there are a lot of like parts of like those years that I just like don't remember. And I think there was also, I think I'm like just now starting to learn how to like love people who are struggling in a way that doesn't also just like take all of the air out of my life. I don't know if that sounds harsh, but that's also like, but like doing that in like a like compassionate and available way has been really tricky. Yeah, so I think that's like the like that's probably like my deepest psychological spiritual wound. Yeah. But he's doing a lot better.
Is he in Texas or
he moved to he went to college in Asheville, North Carolina.
Okay, so he's still there in Asheville. Okay.
Yeah.
What is one of the hardest conversations you've had to have?
Jeez, I avoid difficult conversations like the plague. But shit. There are a lot of difficult conversations that I feel like I need to have but haven't had yet. I think recently, I don't know if this like qualifies as like the most difficult conversation I've ever had to have in my life, but my I think like back in April, my mom outed me to my dad, who was like the one like close family member that I hadn't had that conversation with yet, and you know, like they both kind of had a part to play in how that went down. But a couple weeks later, I went down to Austin to like catch up with a friend from college, and then it also seemed like a good opportunity to like talk about gender and queerness with my dad, like face to face, and that definitely didn't go how I wanted it to go, and I think a lot of that was because he's just scared, like scared and like didn't maybe didn't understand a lot of what I was talking about, or like what that process had looked like. And I think, a big part of that was because I hadn't like clued him in the entire time. So it's like, so he's receiving it as just this like packaged revelation where it's like, I'm not a woman. I need to like have my tits surgically removed, and don't call me your daughter, right? Which that's like that's a lot to process. It took me like years to like get comfortable with those truths. And so he had his reaction to it, which hurt a lot. But like I've also just had to realize that like we're in relationships, so I'm gonna have my experience of my gender, and he's gonna have his experience of my gender, like whether or not I want him to. So that was that was tough, but I was also really glad that I did it. It was like, it just felt like even though I didn't feel seen, heard, and accepted, which is kind of what I wanted, it was like, cool, I have kind of like taken a step towards being authentic with my dad. And so I feel good about how I did this, and that's a comfort. And then, I also, and then, I also get to continue to make decisions about like how much I, like how vulnerable I want to get with him. And like, I don't think I would have known that without, like, I don't think I would have like known that on a deep level if I hadn't kind of gotten stung by that conversation.
Okay. And the last question, if all of the electricity goes out and but the phone screens, computer screens, TV screens still work, and it pops up PSA, public service announcement, and everyone in the world can see your face.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to say? Like, what are you going to say? What are you going to do? How are you going to react?
Sheer terror. I think I would just start bawling.
Oh my god. I was editing a video yesterday. It's about to come out, and I was dying laughing at like one of the dude's answers. He was just like, now what? He was like, I don't know, survive, loot.
Yeah, totally.
It was just so funny.
Yeah. Fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have one friend who, like, every time we talk on the phone, she's just tells me to be nice to myself over and over and over again.
Mm.
And like that was the first thing that popped into mind. I'm like, you can't say that, it's really fucking cliche.
Yeah.
But
People need to hear it though.
serious, yeah, hearing it from her is always feels really important because like there's part of my brain that's always like, you don't have time. I don't have time to be nice to myself.
Oh yeah.
Being nice to myself, like, and then also like, I'll never get better if I'm nice to myself. Is a lie that I love to tell.
Yes.
And yeah, so I guess that's my.
Be nice to yourself.
Yes.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Totally.
This was amazing.
Yeah.
So enjoyable. What did you draw? Show everyone.
Shapes.
Yay!
Yeah.
I love them.
Yeah.
Can you sign it?
Sure. I didn't use it.
I also dig that gold brown that you got in the middle of the.
Yeah.
I was like, that's cute.
Yeah.
Goes with the palette.
Yeah. This is Rose in the flesh.